Hey guys, cameos me, another movie for guys. Continuing my Muppet movie reviews. I know it's been a while, but after Kermit Swamp Years, I had to take a break. I mean, that movie was just, it was offensive. I didn't really want to watch another Muppet movie. And plus, I felt like I had some time, so I just waited. But I figured, you know what, the Muppets comes out 1 week from today, so I probably should watch the final 2 Muppet movies that I need to watch. So I did that. Unfortunately, I had to watch the movie I was least looking forward to watching. Like, I really was not looking forward to watching this movie at all. I only watched it because I owned it. If I didn't own this movie, I probably would not have watched it. Um, but let me get to this. Like I told you guys, the Muppets from after they got canceled, after Muppets Night got canceled, after Muppets from Space really didn't do well, they became strictly direct-to-DVD and TV special things. And they really weren't doing very well. They did like a few TV specials every now and again, and eventually Disney bought them for Kermit's 50th anniversary, I believe is actually why they did this. But that first movie that Disney did, you know, when they officially bought the Muppets, is the 2005, I think. Yeah, it's 2005 musical comedy, The Muppets Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I own this, and I really wish I didn't, but when this came out, I was like 6 or 7, and I really loved it when it came out, but I knew I really wasn't gonna like it, because obviously it was 6 and 7, and I really loved Muppets from Space when it came out, and I obviously didn't like that. And this, I really wasn't looking forward to rewatching at all. I knew it really wasn't going to be very good, and after watching it, yeah, this really is not too good. I honestly don't hate this movie because there are some things I really do like about it, but it's not a good movie. It is a very, very bad movie, and especially for the Muppets, it's really sad that this is what they've come to, is the Muppets Wizard of Oz. Now, first of all, let's get to the plot of the Muppets Wizard of Oz, which is kind of like your classic, different modern day spin on the Muppets on the Wizard of Oz, which is a cool idea. I like that they try to do something different. Instead of Dorothy being a little girl who lives on, you know, on a farm in Kansas. Instead, she works in a restaurant with her Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, and she dreams of being this big recording artist. She wants to be this big recording artist, and the Muppets are doing this kind of like search thing to find the next great artist, and she wants to do it, but Auntie Em and Uncle Henry are refusing, so she basically doesn't get to do that. And then, of course, a storm hits, and obviously the tornado hits, and basically it basically is the classic story of The Wizard of Oz, and that's basically a plot of The Muppets Wizard of Oz. So, yeah, there's really not too much different to it, but there is a lot of problems with this movie, definitely. Starting off right off the bat with the acting. To me, this seemed like this movie was strictly just a movie. It was strictly just a movie that was made for, it was made for Ashanti to be this big hit music star. That's what it seemed like to me. They wanted it to be Ashanti's big star debut, and that's really all they cared about. They didn't really care about her as a character. And let me say this, Ashanti is a really good singer. She is a very good singer. She's not an actress. She has heart. She interacts well with the Muppets, but her character is just so bland. There's really nothing that interesting about her. I didn't really care much about her character at all in this movie. I didn't connect with her very well. Just as a character, she was very flat, and it seemed like they were a lot more interested in just having Ashanti be the star and not really focus much on character development. You don't really get too much with her character, and you know they don't really care too much about her when they spend literally 12 minutes before the actual hurricane starts, and I think it was pretty ridiculous, and I definitely was not a fan of Ashanti at all. Queen Latifah and David Allen Greer do not are really have nothing to do in this movie, unfortunately. They could have had some really good stuff, but because of the fact they spend zero, they really don't spend a whole lot of time on Kansas at all. They really have nothing to do in this movie. They have some fun interactions here and there, but they have nothing to do, and David Allen Greer especially was very, very annoying. I really didn't like his character at all, and they didn't really do a good job. Jeffrey Tambor, for what he's in, is very good. I mean, I just love how deadpan he is and how he takes everything he says so seriously. He's very funny, but again, like Muppets from Space, there are points where you can't tell really what he's trying to do. And I couldn't really tell what they want us to make of his character, and I really wasn't. He is revealed to be the wizard. We all know the story, The Wizard of Oz, where the wizard is actually just some man, and that's Jeffrey Tambor. I thought that was kind of funny that they did that, but other than that, I really wasn't a fan of him. Who I really, really loved and saved this movie for me, even though it was 3 minutes, was Quentin Tarantino. Oh my god, I loved his scene. He is probably, I think, one of the greatest Muppet cameos of all time because it's just so random. It comes out of nowhere. The Wicked Witch and Dorothy are about to fight, and out of nowhere comes Quentin Tarantino, and he starts pitching ideas for the scene, and they're violent, and they're over the top, and they're just the most ridiculous stuff, and just the fact that they got him for a Muppet film, I think is hilarious. I really love that, and I think he was just so funny in the movie. It's just so funny to see him interact with Kermit the Frog. It's something that you would never think would happen, and it is outrageous, and they make fun of that, and it's so self-aware, and it's exactly what I wish this movie would have been. More of that humor I would have really appreciated, but unfortunately, besides that scene, I really didn't enjoy the movie that much, but Quentin Tarantino, I think, was great for what he had. Now, the Muppets, unfortunately, really don't have much to do in this film at all, really. I didn't really feel, they had a lot to do here. You know, Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo, they're fine, but really they just represent, it's really just their versions of the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man. There's really not much else to them except for that, and I didn't really think they did a good job at all. The worst character for me was Pepe. Oh my god, Pepe was so fucking annoying, and it's too bad because he was one of the best things about Muppets from Space. Here, he is the most annoying thing ever. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but let me think about this. Toto is supposed to be a dog, right? So here's what they should have done. Cast Ralph the dog, who seems to be non-existent. He's not even in this movie. Ralph the dog, though, Toto's a dog, Ralph the dog, it would have made more sense. Why they did Pepe, I don't understand. I mean, Pepe was a big thing at the time, but he's just so annoying. I mean, him talking to Dorothy every 5 seconds, he needs to get, like, he's the kind of character that needs to get his 2 cents on everything. He has something to say about everything, and he's very, very annoying. And it would have been fine if Pepe might have had a smaller role, but him being, like, the main Muppets in this film was very annoying, and it took me, just like Goggles, about, I'd say, 5 minutes to be sick of his character. He was very annoying, and he was very annoying and got very, very tiring. Miss Piggy, however, I thought, out of all the Muppets, was the best by far. She was so great, as all 4 witches. First of all, perfectly casted, Miss Piggy for the 4 witches. She was just great, especially as the Wicked Witch of the West. She is, really funny. She's really fun to watch, and especially seeing a diva version of the Wicked Witch of the West is very fun to watch, and I think she did a very good job. When she's the good witch, she's very good as well, and I think that was definitely very well done. Overall, the acting is pretty flat, really not much to say about it in terms of acting. The director clearly did not care about this movie. You could tell that they just didn't really care much in terms of directing. The tone is very, very strange to this movie. Definitely, I think it was a very strange tone, and I don't really have much to say about the directing at all, because there really isn't much to this. Also, the henchmen of the Wicked Witch, I thought were all really great, but again, I have the same complaint that I did with Kermit Swampier's Muppets from Space, where they try to do what they did in the Muppet movie, where you have the henchmen that don't really support the Wicked Witch, but just go along with it and actually help out the Muppets. They do the same thing here, and it's kind of like, well, I've seen this already. Can you do something else, please? And they really didn't, and I wish they did, because they've done the same thing for the past 3 movies, and it just got very, very tiring. So yeah, directing, really not much to say there. Screenplay to this film is very, very unusual for a Muppet film. I mean, this is supposed to be targeted at families, but they have the most adult references that ultimately just make this dated. It makes it, well, not dated yet, but it's going to be dated. If you want to know how strange the humor is in this film, within the first 6 minutes, there's a Girls Gone Wild reference in a Muppet film. A Girls Gone Wild reference. And then there's so many reality TV references. There's a reference about sex. Literally, there's a reference about sex. There's a scene where we literally see like what look like those like those animated sex porn things you could see. That's what it looked like to me, at least. This woman is like, she's animated, she's wearing a very, very small corset, and that's it. And again, this is a Muppet film and it's supposed to be for kids, and I really feel this wasn't for kids. What's unusual is when they don't have that, it's completely kid humor. So I don't really understand what they were trying to do here. If they were trying to appeal to both kids and adults, they failed horribly because the humor is just way too adult. And the thing that worked in the Muppet movie and the Great Muppet Caper is those references would go over the heads of kids. This, they make it so obvious to the point where I don't think kids should be allowed to watch this movie. I really don't. I can understand why people complain. When this movie aired, a lot of people really didn't like it because they didn't feel it was really for kids, and I completely agree. There's a difference between being adults and being straight up racy. This is just being racy for the sake of being racy. It didn't really seem like they were trying to do anything. They do break the fourth wall a couple times, but again, it feels weird in this movie, and it really shouldn't, but it does. There are times where they break the fourth wall, and it doesn't really work, and I really wasn't a fan of that at all. I definitely did not like that. Also, in terms of humor, the film is very crude, it's not very funny, and every now and again there were some very clever jokes. There was this one joke where Kermit goes up to Oz, and he's like, "Are you related to Frank Oz?" That was very clever. That I really liked. I wish there were more jokes like that in the film, but there really unfortunately weren't, and there really wasn't much humor that I found very funny. I thought it was mostly very, very crude and not very funny at all. The other problem I have is that I feel because those Girls Gone Wild references and the pop culture references, this film is eventually going to be dated. It's going to be very dated very soon. It's not dated yet because people know what Girls Gone Wild is, but a few generations, from now, people are not going to know what Girls Gone Wild is, and this film is going to be very, very dated because of that, and that's not good at all. You should never have a dated Muppet film. So overall, screenplay is very, very unusual. Definitely very strange. The cinematography is by far some of the worst, I think, in any Muppet film. The sets in this movie look boring. They look lifeless. They look like they were made in a few minutes. They really don't look like they had much care put into them. I mean, this is supposed to be the land of Oz, the dream city. This city that just is a paradise, and you really don't see that here. It just seems like any city, really. It doesn't really seem like anything that's special, and I don't know if that was the point they were trying to drive across, but if you look at the original Wizard of Oz and how beautiful it looks, and I'm not saying they need to capture the same look here, but they really, I don't think, did a good job at all with trying to capture the look of this city. It looked very cheap and just really took me out of it. The costumes I thought looked very good, but they didn't do a very good job of making it seem like, these are just the Muppets playing these characters. It just seemed like the Muppets were in costume and that they didn't really put much effort into it. Because, of course, they established in Great Muppet Caper, like I said, that every Muppet film is just the Muppets playing these characters. And it really didn't work here, I think, at all. I really was not a fan of the way they handled that. Definitely, I did not like that. So that really didn't work to me. I definitely didn't like that, and you really don't believe the Muppets are these characters. It just seems like the Muppets doing a poor representation of these characters. That really is what it seemed like to me. Now, the movie, I have to say, is also very boring very fast. I mean, after we got to Oz, I got very bored. There were a few times when I was like, oh, this is really interesting, but a lot of times it's like, yeah, I've seen this all before. When you see Oz, it's just like, I've seen this before in better representations, and it's really nothing that interesting. They don't do too many differences with this. They really don't. I mean, they do some differences, but when they do differences, it just feels weird, and it really didn't work for me at all, and I really wasn't a fan of how different they tried to make it, and it just didn't really work for me. And also, the editing style is just terrible. You could tell they didn't care about the editing at all, because they give us, I think, maybe 9 minutes to actually really develop our character, and the movie really isn't concerned about character development either. Now, the songs in this film, you think this, since this is The Wizard of Oz, that they have a lot more songs. There are a total of 4 songs in this entire movie. I'm not kidding you. 2 of them being music videos, and it starts off with a music video. Like, when this movie starts off, Ashanti is in a music video, and it's very, very strange. There are 2 really great songs in this film, though, that actually I really love. One is called The Witches in the House, which is the Wicked Witches villain song, which, let's talk about that scene, because that scene, in my opinion, is one of the most brutal scenes from any Muppet film, and I just felt they went too far. I mean, there's a difference between, like I said, being adults and taking some risks, and then just being edgy. That is another scene that I felt just wanted to be this edgy film, and them, I mean, okay, fine. Them taking the lion, putting him in, taking Fozzie and putting him in that, rope and taking him in prison, I can understand that. But them ripping Kermit to shreds and electrocuting Gonzo and taking them apart, that's something that's going to scare kids. And I know that the original Wizard of Oz scares kids, but that did not do what this did. That was insane, and I thought that was pretty crazy, and I couldn't believe they went that far. But The Witches in the House is an awesome song, and it is definitely a very fun song. It's a great villain song, definitely. It really encompasses what a great Muppet villain should be. I thought they did a very good job with that. And also, I'm With You, a song that Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo, and Pepe, and Dorothy, they all sing together. They sing together as they go on their quest, and it's a very fun song. It does feel a bit out of place because most of the music in this film is very modern and very R&B. But I will say, because there isn't a lot of music in this film, when there are songs, it kind of feels out of place. It feels like, oh, we're gonna sing now for no reason to keep you invested. And I felt they would have put a bit more care into these songs, which they really didn't. They didn't seem to care about the things that make a Muppet movie great. And some of the film, I think, does have homage to the classic Muppet films, but then other parts just feel like a more cheaper version of Muppets from Space. And obviously, it makes it a very dull film, and it just could have been a lot better than it was, and it seemed like it was a lot more interested in getting these big A-list celebrity cameos and less about fun Muppet interaction, which is obviously what we really want to see in this film. The other thing is that this movie really doesn't have a lot of heart to it, and then towards the end it tries to do it, and it just doesn't work because I couldn't take the movie seriously. I really couldn't take it seriously at all, and anytime they try to do heart, I'm just like, why are you taking this seriously? This is the Muppets. We shouldn't be taking this that seriously, and they're really not. If they want to do some heart, there were a couple spots in the film where I felt they could have had some really good heart to it, and they really didn't, and I felt it was very out of place, and it really didn't work. Now, while the Muppets in this film are great, they don't have a lot to do, and like I said, the film is very adult in terms of the climax, and it's downright disturbing to any Muppet fan, and overall, I just felt this film, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was a cheap TV movie that just could have been a lot better than it was, and it ended up being very boring and uninteresting. And the worst part about it is that every so often, there are some really good scenes, like the witches in the house before, of course, they murder the Muppets, like the Quentin Tarantino cameo, like that Frank Oz joke that I thought was very clever, but there's just so much in between that this film just ends up being a complete waste of time, and especially because I watched the extended version. I forced myself to watch the extended version of this movie. I didn't have to, but I did. I watched the extended version of it, and overall, guys, I really would not recommend this movie at all. I don't hate it, but I am going to give it a 1 out of 5 or a D-. It is a very, very bad film. It is something that I'm very happy the Muppets never did again, and really isn't a successful movie at all. There is a reason why Ashanti was never in a movie again after this, because she just simply isn't very good, and seemed like it was a lot more interested in making these in getting these big A-list celebrities, and a lot less interested in the Muppets themselves, and that's really why it ultimately failed for me. But overall, guys, in my review, The Muppets Wizard of Oz, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie. You have seen it. This was a very bizarre movie, even more bizarre than Muppets from Space. Muppets from Space was very bizarre, but this was, I think, even more bizarre. And that's basically my review. Hope you enjoy it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for, I think, another movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.